In one episode of the TV show Friends, they discuss whether or not an unselfish or a selfless good deed exists. Now, Joey, one of the characters in the show, is convinced that it does not exist and that we are all selfish. So are we all selfish? Well, let's first take a look at the words unselfish and selfless, which are used interchangeably in this show. Are they the same thing? So, according to Cambridge Dictionary, they are not the same thing. An unselfish person thinks about what is good for other people, not just about their own advantage. And about selfless, they say the following: caring more for what other people need and want, rather than for what you yourself need and want. Okay, so they are similar in meaning, but the difference lies in the fact that a selfless person believes that other people's needs are more important than theirs. So in other words, a selfless person by definition is less selfish than an unselfish person. Or to see the other way around, an unselfish person is more selfish than a selfless person. So now that we know more about these two words, is it actually true that unselfish or selfless good deeds don't exist? Well, just by looking at the definition, unselfish good deeds can absolutely exist. An unselfish good deed simply means that one is doing something good for another while also still thinking about one's own advantage. For example, you can buy someone chocolate with the hope of also having a taste. Or you help someone with their problems because you just don't like to see them troubled. Okay, but what about selfless good deeds? Do they exist? Well, we can also see it this way. If a selfless person exists, then a selfless good deed can also exist. Let's say you're saving money to buy a car that you need for work, but instead of using that money for a car, you decide to spend it on your child's education. In this situation, you care more about your child's needs than your own needs. So as we can see, unselfish or selfless good deeds do exist. So wait a minute, does this mean we are not selfish? Well, what does Cambridge Dictionary actually say about the word selfish? Someone who is selfish only thinks of their own advantage. Now, this definition makes sense as it is the opposite of unselfish, where one does not only think about their own advantage, but also about other people's advantage. However, an interesting thing is that Cambridge Dictionary, as well as Merriam-Webster, Dictionary.com, and Van Dalen, a Dutch dictionary, all agree that selfish is a synonym for egoistic. And this is important because an egoist practices egoism. And what is egoism, you ask? An excellent definition of egoism comes from Merriam-Webster that goes: a doctrine that individual self-interest is the actual motive of all conscious action. And this is exactly what they are talking about in that Friends episode. This is what they were after. Because it is true, everything we do is for the sake of self-interest. For example, why would someone spend money they saved for a car on their child's education? Well, the answer is simple. They believe their child's education is just more important than that car. It may be selfless by definition, but in the end, the individual self-interest is what motivates the parent to make this decision. The individual self-interest is what drives us to do things and where all motivation originates. Everything we do is done for our own benefit. And if we consider selfish and egoistic to be synonyms, then yes, we are all definitely selfish. Or selfish and egoistic should not be synonyms. Nonetheless, we all, first and foremost, have our individual self-interest in mind when we think and act. We can be unselfish or selfless, but what we do is ultimately determined by what we think is most important. There's no going around it. Because no matter what we do, even if we hold the door open for someone, or donate money to charity, or help somebody with a chore, we are always driven by what we think is best for ourselves. By the way, there is actually a reason why the individual self-interest is the actual motive of all conscious action. Maybe in another video I will tell you more about that, but rest assured, if this video comes, it will be made with my self-interest in mind.